We are going to go into the next draft here. Finally, the map will be Braxis Holdout. This is our first two lane map of the evening, and on China, two lane maps does not mean you're in a 4-man. Sometimes it means there's really weird rotations, and you're just constantly all over the map, everywhere. Sylvanas is really, really popular for them, but they don't. If one team drafts Sylvanas, they don't go into the 4-man. They're constantly like, "Oh, you're in this lane, we're going to go to the other lane with Sylvanas. Oh, you're in this lane, we're going to go to the other lane with Sylvanas. Oh, you're in this lane, we're going to go to the other lane with Sylvanas."
Right.
I cast a game during Gold Club where they were literally never in a lane for more than like 15 seconds. They were just like constantly until they got a pick. Once the enemy team slipped up and misrotated and they got that one pick, then they pushed the lane as hard as they could. But we'll be that gold banned out for eStar first off, and that is one of the strongest heroes on this map.
Yes, absolutely. Like, wave clear is key, and for that very reason, Braxis Holdout is actually one of the few maps where you tend to see a Kalthas being picked every now and then, simply because his Flame Strike is such a good tool to dominate Zerg waves when they enter your base. So I wouldn't actually be surprised. I'm not sure how much China still likes playing Kel'Thas, but at least in Korea, we definitely saw it pop up every now and then. Zarya now being locked away as well. Zarya, of course, being an incredibly strong member when it comes to reinforcing a 4-man lane. And normally on Braxis Hollow, you get to see a 1-4 split on both sides, and the team that has Zarya and regular support is normally going to out-sustain their enemies. So I can't really blame SPT for banning it away, especially considering the fact that eStar has that first pick available.
Yeah, Zarya is a hero who's pretty much considered broken on Braxis Holdout in competitive, to the point where if a team gets Zarya and you don't know how to, there's really not a great answer to it. It's like straight up, there's not a fantastic answer to Zarya on Braxis Holdout, even at the competitive level. You should just win if you play the rest of your draft correctly, if a team allows you to have Zarya. This does allow Tass through the draft, and Tassadar is going to be very difficult to deal with. You get into these constant poke wars in the 4-man, and in a constant poke war, an on-point Tass shield gives you multiple cooldowns of value from the enemy team, and he has the wave clear with Psystorm to help his team push up.
Right.
If you push up, you can suddenly control the globe generator. If you control the globe generator, you have more sustain on top of that. And eventually you'll win the attrition war unless you can kill the Tassadar. How do you kill a Tassadar, though? That's like the real question.
Yeah, one of the most elusive heroes in the game. He's just so hard to kill. And oftentimes when you see a team prioritize Tassadar too hard as a focus target, the rest of his team, or the rest of Tassadar's team, is just going to annihilate you because you don't have cooldowns to defend yourselves. We see an early Morales being locked in, though. Morales is probably one of the best supports when it comes to prolonged team fights and early skirmishes, and with her best turn buddy Sergeant Hammer, that already makes for one scary duo. We've basically played against that kind of comp at some point during our Hero League career, and we know exactly how pesky and annoying it can be when the Sergeant Hammer sieges up early, probably in one of those smoky bush areas, and then the Morales is just going to position herself very safely. She's going to keep Sergeant Hammer safely and sound, and it's going to be, you need a lot of hard engage to kind of get rid of the Sergeant Hammer. You need to have some knockbacks potentially to knock her out of siege range. And with a Tassadar, you're kind of lacking all that because you basically gave one entire team slot to an additional support. Sonya coming in now, probably going to be the solo laner. And we see the magical combination here between Vala and Tassadar as well, Cavalier.
I'm a little bit surprised to see the Sonya picked up there. Solo laning is kind of in a weird rock, paper, scissors dynamic right now where there's always a hero that can beat another given hero in the solo lane. And on a 2-lane map, if you're winning the solo lane, that's 50% of the map that you're just winning for your team. You're winning 50% of the objective. And I like the Vala pickup. I'm surprised they did not pick up their support there because Malfurion and Lucio are really the only two supports that can sustain in the 4-man consistently against really, really high damage output against consistent focus fire. That is something we see in the professional level. But they actually end up banning the ETC instead. They're more afraid of the stun potential and the Zagara response.
An SPT specialty here, the Zagara, that is. We saw her being utilized greatly during the Eastern Clash. Not to the greatest success always, but I think that eStar probably know the Chinese scene way better than we do, so they know exactly what SPT in theory is capable of doing if they get a Zagara, and maybe they have some They've made some unpleasant experience doing scrims or whatever, so I think this is basically just a comfort ban, so they don't have to pick, or they don't have to play against that constant split pushing and wave clear potential, because I think they're going to put a lot of emphasis into that Sergeant Hammer lane, and oftentimes a Zagara can really punish the Soul lane while, you know, the Foreman lane is getting so much attention.
The funny thing about Zagara is, against Sonya in particular, your only gap closer is Ancient Spear. So if you miss that, then you can never get on top of the Zagara. And
or if the minions intercept it.
Sonya has enough sustain that Zag can't kill you, but she can also start killing your buildings from off-screen with the range on Banelings from Ball of Acid. So Zagara can win any lane where you don't kill her just by out-sieging you from off-screen, which is not fun to play against. You will eventually lose your Fountain. She can get the wall very easily, and then just get the Fountain, and you literally can't stop it unless you stand in front of the Banelings. But then you're taking all that free damage far enough away from the minion wave that you can't just spin and get it back.
Right. So it's in a weird, like, Sonya Zagara matchup is kind of in a weird spot. On the one hand, you get additional life leech in from the Zagara minions or the Hydralisk, for example. But on the other hand, as you said, she's just going to out-rotate you, and she's just going to out-push you eventually with all those Banelings coming in from off-screen. So probably just a comfort ban, to be honest, to give Sonya a little bit of an easier time, to not fall behind in structures too early. So I like that quite a bit. The last pick now is going to be Falstead, and now they have double glow mobility with a Dehaka Falstead, and this comes in extremely handy when it comes to dominating beacons at the same time. Like, if a Dehaka lands in and followed by a Falstead flight, all of a sudden, from a 1-on-1 situation, you have a 3-to-1 situation against your favor if you're in the side of eStar. So, pretty interesting lineup. And the Stitches, we haven't really talked about this guy at all. It is the first time that I see a Stitches in the Asian scene here. You might have a little bit more experience, Cavalier, but is there anything we can interpret into that Stitches pick?
Stitches has always been sort of considered a counter to Hammer, particularly in the Chinese meta. Chinese have always had Hammer strategies, particularly on Dragonshire. They'll draft Hammer a lot as a cheese strategy. They'll plan to get to 20, have orbital BFG. It always pushes the mid lane, and then they sort of win off the lane pressure from that. But they love playing Stitches. 6, I believe, from Zero Panda, which is not on the team anymore, was considered the best professional Stitches player in the world by a good portion of the professional scene. So they have examples to learn from. They know it works against Hammer. Even if Hammer's sieged up in a bad position, you can get the hook. If Hammer is not sieged up, she still isn't as mobile as a hero on a mount. It's
Look at that 6 studio, by the way, though.
Yeah, I wish we had an in-person event like this for NA and EU. That would be so amazing. Like, as the regular league, obviously, it's online for us just due to geographic constraints.
Did you hear about the second Eastern Clash taking place in a new esports stadium by Blizzard in Taiwan?
Yeah, I did. That's so exciting. I want to be able to go.
Oh, man.
But, Hammer backs away and tends to run away in straight lines when she does use her escape. And if you can hit the hook as that happens, then that Hammer's dead, because the escape's already been used, and the follow-up route from Mouth is pretty much going to 100% ensure the kill.
Yeah.
And this is when we see it. Whenever there's a clean follow-up CC, that's when you draft Stitches.
It used to be, like, a really good synergy to pick it with Tyrande. Obviously, Tyrande has fallen off a little bit. We even saw a short period of time where there was, like, hook into zombie wall. But I think with the Marfuian being so good in general right now, the route into the hook is just the safest way of doing it. And I really like eStar's composition as a whole, because not only do they have the hook root synergy, but also they have Tassadar plus the Vala plus the Sonya. So regardless of who Tassadar is going to shield, with the exception of maybe Stitches, like, those two targets are greatly going to benefit from the shields, from the life leech, and the protection, of course. So they do have great engage if they land that golden hook, but they also have pretty good damage through longer, sustained team fights. So I really, really like the team comp coming in from eStar here.
And again, we're seeing SPT do something unusual. We talked about the 1-4 split that we normally see out of teams, and we're not saying that. We're seeing a 2-3 split.
Exactly.
This does force eStar to respond. We are going to see Sonya Tassadar in the top lane to respond to the Falstad Dehaka, and this is so cool to see these different laning arrangements and how they work out for these different teams. I'm concerned that SPT does not have enough kill pressure or enough damage in this bottom lane to actually kill the Vala, which means that Vala is going to be able to play very, very aggressively despite the fact she doesn't have a shielder.
And We talked a lot about Stitches, you know, being a natural counter to Sergeant Hammer, but let's not forget that he's also pretty good against Lucian Morales, who's not the most mobile and agile hero, especially support out there. Now, they're sieging up against the Malfurion, and they get that first blood. SPT once again showing why they're such a strong team in the early stages of the game. And we could also see the significance of global mobility, because without that Dehaka burrow, they would have not been able to pick that kill. And you can really see how Tiger on the Tassadar wasn't even close at keeping up with the global mobility speed that they have. So SPT putting up quite the show here in these first few minutes.
I love these decisions of the way they're using their globals. They had both their globals top, and then one of them broke out to secure the pick. And now that Melody C is getting low, did get speared there, unfortunately. And if you're a ranged hero against a Sonya, all you have to do to win the lane is dodge the spear. Didn't dodge the spear, ended up having to lose the lane. But Morales can just go top, heal him back to full with almost none of her mana used up, and then rotate back down. Dehaka's going to waddle his way up there as well, make that again a 2v1. And SPT's objective here is to split 2-3. Bully any lane they can using their globals, and then if eStar rotates away and doesn't respect the fact that they have a numbers advantage in that lane, use their globals to go to the other lane and pressure there instead. And this is what I'm talking about, SPT in particular, but Chinese teams in general. Always have these really interesting laning strategies that they try and make every fight as unfavorable for the enemy team as possible.
Right, team fighting is definitely what the Chinese teams are known for. Sometimes at the cost of macro and late game rotations in general. But when it comes to those crazy team fight mechanics and the great coordination they show, they're second to none, actually, I think. Even with the Korean teams, eStar definitely known to be on par with most of those. Now, the bottom lane is kind of dominated by SPT now. I think they really found their comfort zone. Sergeant Hammer is still in good shape. Wings also doing his best to hold the Shrine and the Beacon, but it was not enough. The first Zurich wave actually goes in favor of eStar, who were just, you know, fast enough when it comes to rotating against that global mobility. And despite losing a hero in the very early stages of the game, they basically balanced that one out by sheer presence with the Stitches, with the Malfurion. Like, SPT can never be safe to really stand in the same place for too long.
We didn't talk about it, but Stitches is one of the few tanks that actually has amplified healing remaining in their kit.
True.
It's a sustain map. Massive sustain is what you need in the Foreman. Stitches has a massive self-heal on his E. It's 20% of his total health pool.
And you're going to get a glow from all those Ultralisks, too. Like, he's going to heal himself for so much.
He does. He went hungry for more, so he's going to have more and more health. And if you can sustain in the 4-man through anything the enemy team throws at you, you're going to be in really good shape. Stitches does go down here. They finally managed to focus on him and get that damage.
Look at that self-heal. Insane.
Yeah. It's so much, but SPT's damage dealers are both late game heroes. Falstad has to finish season marksman and get giant killer to really threaten Stitches. Hammer as well.
It was way worth it though. Like, eStar gets so much value from this first push here alone. Like, they're gonna get the secondary tower line as well. And I think sacrificing one Stitches for this amount of early game pressure is more than worth it. And something we also didn't really talk about here is Falstad, due to the fact that they have Stitches in their roster and due to the magic resistance he innately has. Actually, he didn't go for Dampen Magic, so scratch that, but due to all the tankiness and self-heal he has, he went for an auto-attack build to maybe just get this giant killer later on and deal additional damage in combination with Sergeant Hammer.
Yeah, their damage is all late game, and if you have no damage in the early game, you're in a lot.
They're about to lose this keep almost. Like, they don't have late game if it continues like that.
No, and this is the problem. On a 2-lane map, you need to draft for the early game because you can't guarantee that you get the late game. If you do get the late game, you can't guarantee that you're ahead or even. If you're losing a keep this early on, like, you're in a ton of trouble. We do see 7 was picked up. I was almost wondering for a moment if Morales was going to be like, okay, now I have to go Mule just because our keep's about to die. But she does go for the standard cleanse, which is more expected. I was wondering how desperate SPT felt. Apparently, they don't feel that desperate.
Yeah, you raise up a very good point there. Sometimes we still get to see a Mule even from Malfurion, if you run a double support comp in particular, then, the cleanse. But now again, H being pressured here, but he gets the last second heal, doesn't make it out alive though. Great job by SPT. Their only go-to choice to ever stay in or to ever hope to stay in this game is just all-out teamfight pressure. Unfortunately though, they didn't really get as much damage done as they wanted to, and Sonya and Tassadar are just gonna crush down this first keep after only 5 minutes and 52. I can't believe that's probably one of the fastest keeps I've seen, even considering the fact that it's on Brax's holdout. But eStar already with a permanent advantage. Like, those catapults are constantly going to be bugging SPT.
Yeah, we've been talking about this all day though. eStar has better map decision all across the board. They always have better rotations. They have better calls on when to do what to get a small advantage. Whereas SPT, it's a little bit clunkier. Sometimes they make the right call, but it's usually a little bit late. Or sometimes they make the perfect call that would have been perfect like 2 or 3 minutes ago. Sometimes they just lose track of what's going on and they don't do anything for like a minute. And then they sort of come back into the game. And it's costing them over and over and over. eStar is just a cleaner team right now in terms of map movement.
And the advantage just continues to grow. Not only do they have catapults in top lane already, not only are they rotating around better than their opponents, but they also have heroic abilities unlocked. That means we're now going to have Wrath of the Berserker, Arkan. We see Putrid Ball coming in from Stitches here as well. And you know what? eStar, they're just like, we're going to take this boss solo with Sonya. Tassler is going to help her a little bit. But if we get this boss down, we are even snowballing ahead even more. Like, this is already such a scary spot for SPT to be in, and you can already see how much effort they're putting into this top lane so they won't get pushed in. In the meantime, though, we see Mercenaries knocking on the front door and the bottom. Sonya just continues to deal all by herself with that boss. In the very last second, she was reinforced by Vala and Malfurion. But this is getting from bad to worse if you're SPT's side.
Yeah, and this gives you guys an idea of how important macro is and not missing soak and getting the building advantage actually is in Heroes of the Storm. 4 kills to 0 and a 2-level lead for eStar. SPT has more kills and is 2 levels down because of missed minion waves, because of the structure lead. And in the early game in particular, minion waves and structures are worth far, far more experience than kills. If you can't turn kills into structures, then you're behind if the enemy team is not missing soak and you are for those kills.
Yep. We see the Zerg Wave charging up, 98%, 100%, and the Archangel boss is still holding his ground here as well. And SPT, they just turned level 10. We now see a Stimdrone Sergeant Hammer glowing in pink. Tiger feeling the pain now as well, but he is one slippery target. Uses his Dimensional Shift to get out of harm's way. But eStar, they're not letting go. They definitely want to destroy this second lane here as well. The Zerglings are rushing in here as well. And keep in mind, no mule available, so every amount of damage... Oh my goodness! From downtown, we see a BFG coming down, destroying Sonya, but at what cost? I think it's just a small price for them to obtain, because the keep has fallen, and everything is going in the favor of eStar. It was a last-second attempt here to maybe get something done. I don't think the napalm, excuse me, would have done anything, so it was just a Hail Mary try from SPT.
I mean, BFG is standard in the Chinese meta. We actually rarely see Napalm Strike, but I don't think it's going to matter one way or the other. This is going to be a dead
just a quickie. 9-minute game.
That was a 9-11 minute game.
Oh, yes, we did it.
That just happened.
Illuminatis have actually found their way into Chinese Heroes of the Storm, mate. Loving it. Okay, so eStar looking dominant, looking strong. They are furious. They are enraged about that second game that kind of was, you know, influenced by some technical issues, but they definitely showed the crowd at home as well that they're still the #1 team in China, and they only need one more game potentially to win this first series of the first week of HGC China,